Hey guys, welcome to Distance Learning Week 7. I hope you guys are healthy, stay healthy. This is video number 2. On the first video, we set up the scenario for what the battles of the Civil War are going to be. Last time we stopped here, where we have four of the most important battles in the Civil War. Remember the Civil War, the North against the South, the North, Abraham Lincoln, the Republicans, they want to abolish slavery, and the South, okay, that wants to keep slavery under the president Jefferson Davis. And they're Democrats. Democrats are the ones in the bottom, Republicans in the north. Okay, now the first battle is called Fort Sumter. The war began around 4:30 a.m. on April 12, 1861. Now, 4:30 a.m. It's pretty early. Most of the soldiers were asleep that were there, Union troops that were on the fort. Um, this happened in South Carolina right after they seceded from the Union. And this Fort Sumter was taken by Confederate troops. The South won this battle, if you want to call it that. A good and important thing is that nobody died in this attack in Fort Sumter. Um, I think a couple of horses were injured or killed, but no human lives were lost in this first battle of the Civil War. The irony, I would call this, the irony of this battle where no one died, it's because it's the beginning of a very bloody Civil War. The American Civil War, guys, it's one of the bloodiest civil wars of all times. It's very bloody. So, in an irony, this very bloody war starts with a bloodless battle. Pretty crazy stuff. As you guys remember, last time we were talking about the advantages that the Union had over the Confederates. Remember that the Union, the North, had more railroads, had way more means of production and distribution, people, by about 2 million of them. So when the war begins, Lincoln starts to put blockades on the ports as the states start to secede. Eventually, Scott, one of his generals, comes up with this idea of the Anaconda Plan to put a Union blockade all around the Confederate States. You can see that's what they do here. Of course, when you do a blockade, that means nothing comes in, nothing comes out. So it's going to be very hard for the Confederates to have support from anybody because they're pretty blocked. Okay. With now, an important thing to know is that Lee, General Lee, and President Jefferson Davis were talking to England, to Great Britain, to keep making business with them so England would recognize them as an independent country, the Confederate States of America. When this blockade began, England kind of started thinking about it, like, I don't know, I'm not sure. But England was on the map at this point to see if England is gonna recognize the Confederate States of America as an independent country or not. So even though the North has an advantage with means of production and distribution, more people, pretty much everything, the South, the Confederates, are known for their generals that are very wise on the field. So right here it says Jefferson Davis, the president, of the Confederate States had considerably better generals than Lincoln. The Confederate Army was able to defeat the Union in many battles, even though they were outnumbered and outgunned, like we saw the chart before. Most historians, including myself, agree that while the Union had the leadership and advantage politically with Abraham Lincoln, the South had the leadership advantage with superior generals. Now I'm gonna explain a couple of battles here and there, so you guys can see what we're talking about here. Okay, all of these guys that you can see here are Confederate generals. The main generals of the Civil War comes down to Robert E. Lee. Okay, Robert E. Lee, Edward. He is the main general for the Confederate States. He was born in Virginia. Okay, there's a famous quote that he says that he wasn't going to raise his hand to his motherland, so he couldn't fight against the South. He had to go back home and fight against the Union because he fought. These two guys fought in the Mexican American War, guys, so they knew each other. And on the side of the Union, the United States of America, Ulysses S. Grant. Okay, he is a tough guy. He's known for getting drunk all the time, but being effective at the same time. So Abraham Lincoln kind of put aside the drunkenness factor and said, "Yeah, let's just go with him," because as we're going to see, the Union had pretty, uh, how do you say it, pretty ineptive generals, pretty dumb generals. Okay, we're going to see why. Slow, dumb, not knowing what they were doing in the field. When we're going to see a few charts, you're going to be like, man, I could probably do better than that. Until Ulysses S. Grant came along. Okay, so Robert E. Lee, Robert Edward Lee, and Ulysses S. Grant are going to be the main generals for the Civil War. Now, here's what we're talking about. In the first battle of the second battle of the Civil War, which is called the First Battle of Bull Run, because there's two battles of Bull Run. So this is the second battle. Remember the first one, Fort Sumter, nobody died. The South wins. So the North, because we know they have a lot of people and everything, they're like, okay, we're just gonna go south, started to take over these rebels, and everything will be over in a heartbeat. Well, the Union Army under General Irvin McDowell, a pretty slow guy, suffers a defeat at Bull Run, 25 miles south of Washington, just 25 miles out of Washington. Confederate General, okay, Thomas Jackson, earns his nickname Stonewall Jackson. I'm going to explain to you why. Now, I'm going to be big right here. Okay, guys, this is what happens. The Union's coming. The South, remember, has better generals. So the Union's going to try to divide, okay, it's going to try to divide the Confederate Army, divide and conquer. It's a pretty known strategy that the South, of course, knows about. So what the South does, just like in basketball, you're playing, it's like you go to one side, so the guy comes to this side, but you actually change your way and go to the other side, okay, and start hitting the other side. So it's like a fake, okay? You fake them and they'll go for it, and then you go to the other side. So that's exactly what these guys did. The South was coming. They supposedly sent an army to attack to the right side. So the Union sends an army to stop them, but guess what? They weren't there. That was a fake. So half of the army of the North splits over here, and they ditch that fight and then go straight where everybody else was from the Confederate army, joins them, and so it's a big Confederate army against the Union army. And the Union were still big, but remember, they're not that fast, they're not that smart. Okay? So that's, I mean, it's like playing basketball, guys. You go to one side, the guy eats the fake, you go to the other, you join your friend, between two of you, you'll score. Okay. And then at this time, because remember, the Union has a lot of people. So even though the South does this trick, it's still harder battle, okay? Because the North has too many people. At this point, Stonewall Jackson comes in, okay? And when he steps in, that's why they call him Stonewall, because then after that, the Union's not able to take a step further south, okay? Very important strategies from the South. We could just tell that they have better generals than the North, okay? So at this first Battle of Bull Run, the Union is the one that starts to attack. They're the one that loses. And at this point, President Lincoln realizes that this is going to be a long war. It's not going to be as easy as they thought it was going to be, especially because of the general factor. Then they they meet again. At this point, the South is the one that's going to attack. Okay, and in Antietam, the Union and Confederate armies clash in Sharpsburg, Maryland. The result was between 22 to 26,000 casualties. Guys, there's a 4,000 gap there of bodies. Where are they? That just to give you a little glimpse of how bloody this battle was, making this battle the bloodiest battle of the Civil War. Now, even though it's a draw, because nobody really kind of they both claim that they won, and then at the same time they both kind of claim that they don't, so it's a draw. But politically, remember England? There was undecided if they wanted to support the South as an independent country or not. Well, at this point, they decide not to. They're like, ooh, the North can take a lot of damage, and the South's not going to last long with those kind of damages on their lines. Math just told England, don't go with the South. It's a loss. So England steps out of the way. Robert E. Lee gets frustrated. Jefferson Davis gets frustrated. But at this point, it looks like they're on a draw. It looks like they're tied at the War of Antietam, the bloodiest war, the bloodiest day in the Civil War. Okay, guys, remember we have a third video. Watch that one. Make sure to go into your Google Forms, answer those questions. Stay safe, and we'll see you guys in a little.